Now that we have a frequency histogram, let's convert this to a relative frequency histogram. Relative frequency is the frequency for a given class divided by the total number of data points, or N. N is the sum of the frequencies. To calculate N, let's click in this cell here, and create a label. Let's type N equals. Then let's click on the cell where we want to calculate N. We will use Excel's auto sum feature. Click on the Home tab and then find auto sum here, represented by a sigma. When we click on auto sum, Excel will guess what numbers we want to sum. We click on auto sum and Excel invokes the sum formula for cells H2 through H6, which is what we want. Now press enter and we see that our sum is 20. Now let's create a column label for the relative frequency. Type F divided by N here. Now let's create an Excel formula by typing equals, and then we click on the cell with the frequency for the first class. We click on the 3. Then we type in divided, and now we want to actually type in the 20. We're not going to use relative cell reference for the 20, our N. It will be 20 each time. So we type that in. We want to copy the contents of this formula. So to stay in this cell, we click on the check mark. Then we get the handle in the lower right hand corner and click and drag down to calculate the relative frequencies. We also did this for the total here. The relative frequency should add to 1, or 100%. The next thing is we would like to display F over N as percents. So to do this, we block off the relative frequency, we click on the Home tab, and then we click on the percent icon. Now we have percents. Let's click on the frequency histogram and pull it out of the way. We will use the insert column graph function of Excel to create our relative frequency histogram. First of all, we block off the data that it will use. We block off the lower class limits through the upper class limits, as well as the relative frequencies, not including the 100%. When data's in columns, Excel will assume that the leftmost column will be your horizontal axis label, and what we want here is the class limits, and the rightmost column will be the vertical axis labels. We now click on Insert tab, and we find the column graph or column chart tab, and we click on that. We choose the first option, and so there we have our column graph. A few things need to happen to it. For one, the bars need to touch, so we left click on any bar, we right click, we click on Format Data Series, we find gap width, and we grab the little bar here and we pull that to 0. Now our bars touch. We can also right click and add data labels. This is Excel 2013, which is slightly different than Excel 2010. To get a vertical and horizontal axis label, what we do in Excel 2013 is we click on the Design tab. In Excel 2010, it will be the Layout tab, which is right next to the Design tab. But anyway, find Add Chart Element, and then find Axis Titles. First of all, let's do the primary horizontal axis title. We type cholesterol levels, and we give the units, milligrams per deciliter. Now we have a proper horizontal axis label. Notice that our Chart Tools menu has disappeared. To get it back, we click anywhere in the chart. Now we have the Chart Tools menu once again. We once again click on the Design tab, Add Chart Element, Axis Titles. Now we select Primary Vertical Axis. We type in for this relative frequency. We note that this is the frequency divided by the sample size N. We type that. We click on the check mark. Now we have a proper vertical axis title. The only thing that remains is we need a proper chart title. So we click on that and we type in cholesterol levels of 20 randomly selected people. We click on the check mark. Now we have a readable and useful relative frequency histogram. If we wanted to use this sample to infer about the entire population, we could, for example, infer that 15% of the population this sample was drawn from have a cholesterol level between 160 and 176 milligrams per deciliter, and they lived happily ever after.